Greetings everyone, welcome to Chess Advanced, and this game was played in Norway Chess 2025, and a very happy belated happy birthday to Arjun Erigaisi. And this is one of his amazing games, and to celebrate an amazing birthday of an amazing Indian prodigy, it's always best to look at his amazing achievements, and this is one such game. So I'm not going to keep you waiting for long, so without further ado, let's start with this game. Arjun starts with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, and g6. We go into the king's Indian defense. Knight to c3, bishop to g7, e4, and d6. So the main line, we have bishop to e2, knight b7, and just bishop to e3. This is just standard development. We have e5, d5 now just taking more space in the center, and we have knight to c5. Now that knight will be an excellent piece, and somewhere along the line, it's always good to just trade the dark square bishop for that knight, because that knight is a bit too strong. Here just queen to c2, just defending that e4 pawn, and we have a5. Knight to f3, knight to g4, and now just going for this bishop to g5, not allowing the trade of bishop to happen here on e3 square, because then the pawn structure gets weird, and yes, you get the open file, but it's not going to be as good. Here just f6, now pushing the bishop back, bishop to h4, just g5. Now bishop to g3, we have f5 even by Magnus is pushing, and Magnus is saying that he's playing for win. And here knight to d2, but now just going for this f4, and seems like your bishop is tried, but not really, because now you have this very nice bishop caps on g4, bishop caps, and just f3. So either you capture and I capture, and well, then we just trade basically. So here Magnus says no to trade. He moves the bishop back. We have bishop to f2, and now just p6. So the situation is very, very nice, and as you can see, most likely giving up the bishop early on for this is a little bit, seems a little bit scary, because then you have to play against the bishop pair, against the knight pair, and well, it's a close position, so bishop pairs are not going to be that helpful. Knights are going to be helpful, so that gives you a plus. But again, then you have to understand that if you reach the end game, the bishop pair are going to be really, really strong. So bishop caps on c5 does seem like a good move by the engine standards, but by the human standard, it looks a bit scary. Here d captures, you castle queenside. Seems like a great position to have even as white, but again, you have to calculated very, very precisely. Here after b6, we have b3 by Arjun, and Arjun's position is very nice. He's preparing to castle queenside, and the position is going to be very, very good. From there we have g4. Magnus continues to keep pushing on the king side. We have queenside castle, rook to g8, and just king to b2. So not really players are interested in just getting their king to safety. Magnus is maybe preparing queenside castle, or maybe just even king to e7 is fine in this position. We have g captures now, knight captures, bishop to f6, and now just going for rook h to g1. You have to just defend that pawn, and you cannot push it, because then you fall into all sorts of troubles. Here bishop to g4, but now just a3, and now just queen to d7, knight to b5, king to e7, and now just going for this rook d e1. Nicely just pushing, just keeping that rook against the king, and hoping to have some tactics in the future. Rook to g7, knight to d2, and just king to f7. So both players are trying and waiting to see if the other player makes a mistake. The position is very, very drawn and very closed, so until and unless someone makes a really, really dire mistake, it's most likely going to remain that way. Hey, just g3, trying to create some chances, even giving a little bit of push to Magnus, but here just bishop to h5. And now we have g captures, e captures, and bishop to d4. Bishop to d4 is a very nice move, and I'm saying that because yes, I mean, there was a check and you had to defend against that, but bishop to d4 is a very, very nice move, because now what do you do in this position? The trouble is that you can actually get a very nice position in this. You can go for rook captures, and after rook captures, rook to e8 seems like a very logical move, logical development move. But the issue is, in this position you have a very nice tactic, which is this bishop captures on f6, because after king captures you have this b4, and where is the knight going? Knight doesn't have any squares. I mean, not that many squares is what you have to understand. There is only two squares for the knight, which is this a6 and b7, and yeah, it's going to be very much troublesome. And now if you play a captures, knight to b7, you have queen to c3, and the queen is infiltrating no matter what you do. Here rook to e5, now trying to block, but now just rook to f1. So how do you defend this pawn? It's really, really difficult to defend this pawn. If you play a move like queen to g4 trying to defend the pawn, the position, even with the engine evaluation, you can see that the position is very, very good. But here after queen to e3, with the idea that you cannot even capture because that pawn is pinned, but now comes king to e7, so that queen can be captured now, but just rook caps on f4, and queen to d1 seems such an amazing move. I mean, just infiltrating into the position, but unfortunately you don't have any pieces to back up your queen, and sometimes that can really backfire with a move like knight to c3, and unfortunately you have no squares left for your queen. All of these squares are taken, so now you're gonna have to move queen to h1, and just look at this queen. This is a sad queen, and yeah, that's not a good way to have to place your queen in such an such a disgusting position. But all of this could have been possible after rook captures. Rook captures, I mean, position looks very nice if you think about it. The bishop is already there on this diagonal, rook is already there, queen can jump in. It's a very nice position to have. But again, after bishop to d4, Magnus did not choose to trade any pieces, neither did he choose to trade rooks. He went immediately for the kill, and I think Magnus is pushing a bit too much because he goes for queen to h3. Queen to h3 unfortunately does not work because you're just hanging a full pawn, and there is no compensation for that because now Arjun does not go for it. Unfortunately, rook captures on g1, rook captures, king captures on f6, and Arjun goes for a different move. But here in this position, knight caps on c7 makes much more sense because that's the base of the pawn chain. And when you can eliminate the base of the pawn chains, the second part of the pawn chain becomes weak. And when that becomes weak, you're going to have to constantly defend against that. In a close position with two knights against those pawns, I mean, those pawns are definitely falling. Let's say you play a move like rook to c8 attacking the knight, knight to b5. Now, how do you even defend that pawn? There is no way you can defend that pawn. Either you move with a move like that, and then check comes and I infiltrate inside your position, and maybe you're just getting checkmated, or you just play a move like rook to d8, and after e5, I mean, your position is really collapsing because d captures, queen caps on h7, and how are you stopping all of these checks and your immediate collapse of your position? You cannot do that. But also there was queen to c3 check right away, and that's also very nice because now once you go for queen captures, king captures, and you have to understand there is still this threat. So maybe Arjun could have gone for either of the options, but his position is very nice. But instead of all of this, Arjun decides to open up the king, and he sets up a very nasty trap for Magnus, and he goes for e5 check. And how do you deal with this? I mean, again, captures is an option, but the fact is, if you capture with the pawn and a queen comes inside your position, there is no threat. There is no threat in a sense that, that in a previous line that we saw that there was. But maybe that was the best option that Magnus had in this position, because Magnus instead goes for king captures on e5, and that's just a bit too much. I mean, it's too much. You have to understand that if you're just capturing with the king and your king is on e5 while the queens and the rooks and everything is still on the board, I mean, this is madness. Hey, queen captures on h7 was played by Arjun, which is the best move in the position. Bishop to g4 was trying to keep this rook from not jumping inside the position, but just queen to g7 check. And here knight to f5 was tried, but Arjun delivers the final blow. He goes for knight to d4 checkmate with a beautiful checkmate on this very nice f5 square. I mean, knight is covering all of this, knight second knight is covering this, queen is covering all of these squares, the king has nowhere to go. And yeah, this is just a very sad king, and a really beautiful checkmate by Arjun. Really great play. And the e5 trap is really worked up, and it was not so much about the e5 trap as it was that Arjun was constantly putting pressure. He had his rooks on the open file. He also had a bishop on d4. Queen could have jumped in. You could play e5. You could also capture the c7. And all of these threats, when you create continuously, you cannot just expect even a player like Magnus's caliber to actually calculate all of these lines and survive this game. And sometimes this is what happens. You fall into such basic traps, and yeah, you lose the game with a very nice checkmate. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back with games like these, so stay tuned to the channel, stay updated, and yeah, I'll be seeing you guys very soon. Thank you very much for watching.